further to just to redefine how much it can rotate and stuff. Alright? And what else? Okay, I think that's about it. I can go too much on that. But of course you guys get the idea. You guys can further do it. Alright? And okay, let's bring the body. Sure. Let's just pair the whole body group to the body joint. Alright? The whole body group. Where is the body group? Here. Where's the body? So the joint is going to control the whole body group. Just right? So the front part, okay, I'm not going to go too far about that. The front part is the similar idea. If you need to do all the hydraulic, just do what is necessary. And then I'm going to leave the front part as a whole group for now. Alright? Because again, I don't want to go too far about this. Again, you can use whatever. It's fine. I'm going to just carry the front part to the group, to the body as well. Alright? So the front, right? So now the body can just bring along everything. Alright? So the next thing is now the body should be under the control of the group, the main logo. Of course this whole thing should also follow the main. Alright? So this I'm going to put it under the logo. Alright? So that when this move around, it brings along the whole thing. Alright? So the body, I'm not going to straightforward drop it into the global, but I'm going to use the parent constraint. Alright? So parent. So now it can bring the whole thing together. Okay? The reason being I use the parent constraint is because I want to make sure that at the very least, all the different stuff is being grouped by itself. Alright? Means if I want the geometry only, I select the geometry, the whole thing is selected on the geometry. If I want the joint only, I select on the joint group, it's by itself. If I want the control, I select on the control, they are all by itself. Alright? Of course you can further, let's say, who knows, you want to like, okay, let's do a little bit of this one. Alright? So maybe this two, and maybe this four of this thing should be inside of the group body. Let's group this together. Right? Maybe this is like that. Alright, let's do a bit of this. So this one I'm going to use a group, just a group, so I don't have to put joints or anything in. I'm just going to use a group for this. So I'm going to just here. So basically it can move down. Alright? I just do both together up. Alright? So I can actually, let's just set the this. That the group as driven. Alright? So here, maybe this thing, I will add on attribute. Add attribute. So maybe I just do this kind of that's that. So maybe the minimum is 0, maximum is like 10. Right? I'll add this so that I have a kind of a slider here. Alright? And then I'm going to load this controller as a driver. So the backstand when it's 0, right? When it's 0, the group is like that. It's the group's facet Y. So this is facet Y. When this is like this is like that. Key. So when this goes to control, the backstand goes to 10. So the group will goes down to the ground. Right? So whichever number you want it to be, as long as it's touching the ground. Right? And then when this is like that key. Alright? So this one I'm not using join or anything, I'm just using the group to control it. So in this controller we have that extend to bring it up and down. Alright? So again, this I'm just gonna pick out stuff that we can basically just to show you guys what we learned, what we can use. Alright? Who knows if you want to let's say we want to rig the wheel, right? The wheel can do like full rotation of that. Right? Maybe I can have a like so let's say I want this bigger point. Just gonna use again a cluster, just gonna create a cluster. Form cluster. So this is gonna where the cluster is. Alright? Then I'm gonna okay. Alright? Maybe bigger. Side. Right, so this one again you can just orient constraint, parent constraint, or even use a connection editor. Alright? So now this, I'm gonna use this to control the rotation of this. Alright? So I can just make this. Alright, so when this rotate, it's gonna rotate the whole thing. It's not here, but it's gonna show you. Alright? So this one, of course, no limit, so I'm just going to leave that. Again, you can lock and hide the other part, which is not being used. But if let's say this can be rotated sideways, you want to leave out the Y. Alright? But it shouldn't be doing this. So I'm going to lock and hide it. Lock and hide. So now this can do this, and also do that. Alright? And you can separate, you can, depending on what the structure of the model, you can have it control both together or control one side of it, depending on what is needed for the model or the project. Alright? So if you want this to move individually, you're going to separate out the rig. If you want it to move together, you put it together. Alright? You can even, like, let's say I want to put an extra wheel control over here by adding on an extra attribute. This also work. Alright? So just for you guys to have an idea, so this is like one what you can do, right? This is by drop. Also, just to let you guys see, right? So this one, I kind of do like half is by join, the other half here is purely by group, right? Means the group can still do the same thing. Right? This is purely using group. There's no joint at all. You can see the joint stop at half here. So it's the back side is using joint, the front part is using group. Right? But again, I don't want to stretch it too far. So this is just for you guys to know. You can do both. Up to you. Up to you what you want to use. Alright? This is also another, is purely, I think is purely by joint. Okay, so, right, this is purely by joint. But of course, I think it's not completely by joint, but here, this part, there is like, what do you call that, set-driven key. So just to do the structure of the hydraulic for this triangle shape here. Alright? But for the other one, the one that I did yesterday was this part, I actually use not a set key. For this part, I use actual like there is multiple locator that you kind of drive each other. So again, if you want to rig something, there is multiple ways of doing so. You don't have to stick to like, oh, I only can use joint, or I only can use group. It's up to you as long as they work, alright? So there's no one way of doing things. Are you guys still okay? Yeah, it's 10 something. I'm not gonna drag this too far. Let's move on to the last part. Okay, I'm gonna open up the complete one. Alright? Oh, I should have saved this. Just use this one. Alright? So when you kind of complete everything, you want to make sure things are clean. So you can have like this group is all the mesh in one. That's why I say sometimes you choose constraint instead of actual parent, or else you're gonna mix the joint together. Alright? And then you have like a group of joint. Okay, I'm gonna show it. Right? And then you have a group of world. So the world control everything. Alright? And then the other part is gonna move individually. Okay, so means the other part move individually. And then you make sure that they are only rotating on the part that can be rotated. And there is a minimum and maximum. You can set it to like maximum how far, minimum how far. Right? You set the limit. So this is like you want to make sure everything are clean. And every single thing, regardless of how much I rotate all this stuff, or I kind of move things, I can always this one I need so I can always just put this to 0, it goes to default. Put this to 0, it goes to default. So if I were to like rotate all this, so if I want things to go back to where it should be, I just put it to 0, it goes to the original state. Alright? So you want every single control here, when it's being put to 0, it goes back to the original default state. So that's why you want to make sure everything is being cleaned up. Alright? So the last part of this is I didn't type any of that. Never mind. Alright? So basically just now what we learned is the first thing, you start with planning first. You plan what kind of control you want to go for. Are you going to be using attribute, or are you going to use the actual one that you're going to constrain that to? But be clear that all these three, they have to make sense. Alright? It's weird that if you just say, I'm just going to do attribute all the way. If like you do attribute all the way, was it really that friendly to use? You got to think about that. Alright? So this, again, rigging itself requires a lot of thinking. Alright? So, yeah, the last part is the characteristic of a group. Right? So first thing, all mesh. Clean mesh. What this means is that whichever your rig goes, they bring along the mesh, no problem. Mesh means your geometry, right? Your polygons. Means regardless how far I bring this to, nothing breaks. They stay together. Regardless of how I move around. So regardless of how I rotate stuff, nothing breaks, nothing falls apart, nothing flies away, right? If you have your rig that you move and you start to rotate stuff, it doesn't go the way it wants, sometimes it's because of the pivot point, right? The pivot point is not where it should be. Because the pivot point defines how the mesh is going to move. Alright? So you want to make sure everything, one thing, the pivot point is correct. Two thing is the mesh is being zeroed out properly. Right? All the mesh, the very first step we check just now, you want the mesh to be in a clean state. There's no modeling state and modeling detail, there's no like transform detailing. They are all frozen, they are all clean. Alright? So everything will stay together when you move around the region. Alright?